Dr. Esther Oluwole, thank you so much for coming in at this time.
Thank you for...
We are having difficulties with getting people to comply with these regulations. I don't know whether it's linked or not, but we are also having rise in the number of confirmed cases. Are these the fears that many of your colleagues expressed when the whole issue of should we ease the lockdown or should we not was being... Are we realizing those fears now, do you think? Is it?
Exactly. Especially because people thought the easing of the lockdown is everything is as usual, as it used to be, which is not supposed to be. So because of the way people rushed out and not adhere to the preventive measures, that's why we are seeing rising in cases. And if care is not taken, it's going to continue to rise, and we will not be able to flatten the curve. And I hope that we are not going to be, the government is not going to be talking of another new lockdown.
Which brings up the other issue of more and more health workers seeming to test positive.
Exactly.
We're having all kinds of reports about the numbers that are involved. Doctors, today there was the story from Kano. Consultants, resident doctors, nurses, and other, all testing positive. Is this a problem of PPEs, which you and I have discussed before now, or is there something else happening?
Well, because COVID-19 is actually a new virus, nobody prepared for it. It wasn't really prepared for. So, apart from the issue of PPE that are in short supply, the health workers need to be trained and retrained. Training cannot be enough for health workers. So I think what is happening now is that health workers are coming down because of shortage of PPE and because they need to be trained and retrained at intervals during this COVID pandemic outbreak.
Do you subscribe to the idea that there's also the problem of people who are asymptomatic or have other ailments going to private hospitals where the doctors there are not used, or the healthcare personnel there have not gone through this training?
Yes.
And they are the ones, as the health minister says, quite a number of those who are testing positive are from here.
Yes. Very, very important, because so many people, because of lack of trust in the public facilities, they go to private facilities to access services. And that is what is happening now. The health workers there are not really trained. The hospitals are not purposely built for infectious disease like COVID-19. So people are unnecessarily being exposed while carrying out their duties. And that is why we see more and more health workers from private facility coming there, because they were not trained. They didn't prepare for it. And you know, another thing is that when people get there, they don't even disclose their traveling history or their status to these people. And because the hospitals are not purposely built for infectious disease, they are not wearing their PPE when they are examining and everything. But now I think the sensitization, the education, the information is going around. So we hope things will get better.
265 people returned this evening from Dubai, the UAE. Others are scheduled to return in a couple of days subsequently. Government has made arrangements for. Are you satisfied with those arrangements that have been made so that their own issues do not come into the issues we are already dealing with?
I think well, the government is trying, because what I heard is that there are hotels and there are isolation centers that they are going to be for 14 days. Then they will be, if any symptoms come up or something. So it's okay. They are not going to, like I heard this evening, that none of them is allowed to interact with any members of their family at the airports. So they are from the airport straight, the health workers, the people involved, they are on ground to take them straight to the isolation center, which is actually the best.
But then with the health workers themselves at those centers, going back to my previous question, because they don't know, I mean, many of these people may be asymptomatic,
yes.
as you
yes, but I am hoping that the health workers will be of high index suspicion. They will, of course, protect themselves, knowing fully well that any of them might be asymptomatic carrier, and so I'm sure they will take precautions so that they won't take the virus back to where they are working. So
I must ask you this, especially because now everybody's talking about personal responsibility. We should take responsibility, yes, and all of that. You alluded to it in your answer to the previous question, where you mentioned that you hope that we don't have to go back to a situation of relocking the country down, especially if we get a spike. How would you go about flattening that curve, even though people are moving around? How would you go about flattening that curve? The last time you were here, you talked about community spread and contact tracing.
Yes.
How is that going, and how is that impacting on this part of it?
Well, just like you said, it has gotten to the stage of each person taking responsibilities, organizations taking responsibilities, community leaders taking responsibilities, church leaders, market leaders, and like that, taking responsibility. Everybody needs to do their parts in flattening the curve. If, as the lockdown is being eased, if everybody takes to that precautions of when you are going out, put on your face mask. But what we are seeing now is that though people have the face mask, but it's under their chin. They're not wearing it properly. And you can, from yesterday and Monday, we can see the number of people at the banks, at the various banks. If we continue this way, it's not likely that we'll be able to flatten the curve, because the cases will continue, because we have so many asymptomatic carriers in the communities. You don't know who is sitting next to you. Look at the buses, the vehicles on the road now. Even though government has sensitized them, told them to carry maybe 60% of their usual, but they don't adhere.
And those that are adhering are telling those 60% to pay for the rest.
To pay for the rest. And how many people can pay for that? Everybody is just trying to. So, but if we continue like this, it's not likely we'll be able to flatten the curve, because the cases will continue to rise. So it borders on the fact that governments are doing their part. People need to do their part. Organizations need to do their part. The banks need to put something in place to be able to control the population. The markets need to put something in place to be able to control people. Supermarkets need to be able to do that. Everybody needs to take responsibility so that we'll be able to flatten the curve.
Dr. Oluwole, each time you speak, I'm just wondering whether the right people are listening, because what it brings to mind is the transporters who are asking for people to pay for the empty seats, which means that they don't quite see it.
Yes, because they don't understand. They don't understand. Some people still say COVID-19 as problem of the politician, the rich people, but it's not. COVID-19 doesn't know anybody, doesn't recognize anybody. Anybody can come down with it. But we just have to continue to educate, create awareness, let people understand. I think for the transport especially, they have union. I think their union leader needs to be called to attention so that they can take responsibility of their people. And I learned that when people get to the bus stop, they actually don't, everybody wants to be safe. But when you tell them to pay 500 naira instead of 100 naira, okay, I will manage, sure, let me get home. But before you get home,
anything,
you might have caught the virus. Who knows?
Thank you so much, Dr. Oluwole. Thank you so much for coming in. Dr. Oluwole is a consultant public health physician. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.